Welcome to the woke and gay. Transformers are in charge, hey, hey. The girls' room is full of men. They're grooming your children. Or we'll just let a migrant steal them, because Christians will forgive them. Now put on your mask and stick your head up your ass. Pedro and Manuel need a free hotel. We will give you the fill. Now take this pill and chill. You can't even sell lemonade, but here's a naked parade. Your streets look like human vermin, but at least you're not all speaking German. Welcome to the woke and gay. Letting people rob stores is okay. Remember, if you need to get mad, it's Russia and Iran that are bad. So pay for these wars and let the queers and whores spread their hate every day. Welcome to the woke and gay. Pedophiles run the BBC, but manliest is your enemy. A Smurf man making fun of Christ. Bearded drag queens, ain't it nice? Tell me again, there is no hope, because that rooftop had a slope. It's woke, it's gay. Why do so many YouTubers play with minors in an inappropriate way? Welcome to the woke and gay. Hope this song did not hit a trigger. If it did, well, you're just a you can't it, well, you're just
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. And Ryan is back. We have had several episodes of him exposing some of the most heinous, elite behavior you can imagine. And he has got yet more of it to cover today. And as you can see, he's proudly wearing attire showing
appropriate, yeah.
criminal connections. I've got this stuff framed now. We've got the Biden one, the Jeffrey one, all framed on the walls in my house. People coming over, oohing and ahhing. And
I think this has the client list on the back. Yeah, it does.
Hell yeah. I'll put all of Ryan's links are in the description box, including his ex, but I'll also put his store. Because if you want to support him, don't just throw money at him. You can buy products and get something in return.
Yeah.
And they are excellent products. We've even got Ziggy, the University of Dawson top. It's great.
That's awesome.
So what are we covering?
Be a smart kid.
Do you want to give the viewers an overview of what we are covering today, my friend?
It's another I have to police my language here because it's YouTube, but it's another place where men are paying for the thing that men want most. And for ladies of the night, in multiple locations. 9 different high-end apartments, and 2 were in Massachusetts, 2 in Virginia, 2 locations, but 9 different things, and possibly 1 in California. Based on the flight records of the ladies, they seem to be going to Los Angeles quite often and servicing people there. It went on for 3 years at least, since 2020, 3.5 years. And it's right next to the places in Virginia. You had Fairfax and Tyson, so that's really targeting DC. And then the one in Cambridge could be targeting Harvard and MIT, perhaps, Waterford as well. And the one in LA, there's all manner of people there, Hollywood and so on. But 3 Koreans that set up a ring of ladies of the night, mostly Asians, for very high end, $600 an hour. That's a lot, if compared to what it would be in Vegas or something. And it's a little baffling why someone that lives near Vegas wouldn't just go to Vegas where that type of thing is legal. But they're in the East Coast and they wanted the GFE, the girlfriend experience, and these people were willing to pay for it. And the clientele are all very professional. the ages I have of the ones we know of, because there are 2,800 people on the list, are from 27 to 75. Now, there was only one 75-year-old, then it drops down quite a bit to somebody in their 50s, and then mostly 40s, 30s, and 20s. But you've got elected officials. There are people with rather high clearance in the military, professionals in big pharma executives, medical fields. There's one radiologist on the list at least. And the list is only what we got today from one of the hearings. They released a dozen names of the Johns, and about it'll get up to around 30, 32, maybe. There's 28 right now. It's going to increase. But that's kind of baffling. Why, if you have a clientele list of 2,800 people at minimal, that you're only getting about 28 names. But it is something that the judge decided that this was in public interest, and they had probable cause on all these guys, and they were going to release their names. They were not going to have any hidden client list. So bear in mind, this was of age people for once. So that kind of good news. It's not as bad. And people might say, well, what's wrong with such a thing? It's legal in a city in Nevada, for example. It's legal in some other countries. Well, it's illegal in the United States. And so even if it's the type of thing you think people ought to be able to pay for such an activity, since they're not, and since that is illegal, that then makes room for blackmail operations. And if you look at where they're centered, it seems pretty clear they weren't just looking for random rich people when they're targeting elected officials, for example. And so that's what was going on there. Now, how do we know there are 2,800 names? Well, the three main Koreans in this ring, there's more than three people, but you had Han Lee. She's this 41-year-old woman that was sort of the madame, I guess, the mastermind of the operation. You had James Lee, and you had Jun Young Lee. Their all last name is Lee, but they're not related to each other. Not uncommon in Korea. They only have 250 some surnames. Everybody's a Park or a Lee or a Kim or everybody. I think those three names are over 30% of the surnames, whatever. I don't know that James Lee is Korean. It's just the other two are, and he could be Chinese because they have a lot of Lees as well, but he's Asian nonetheless. But the fact that the books were kept in the Korean language, I think all of them were Korean. I think it's a reasonable assumption. Now we know that Han Lee is, and we know that Jung Young Lee is. So what happened was Jung Young Lee was the bookkeeper. All three of them have pleaded guilty, by the way. The woman did first back in September. This thing has been going on, but kind of quietly, and it built up as journalists got information that there are very powerful clients that engaged in this service. And a good portion of these men, almost all of them, in fact, were married, which is odd. I guess if they were single, they could just use dating apps or whatever and find, I don't know, not this quality maybe, but whatever. They had the money, they had wives, but guess they're not happy in their marriage, or who knows, but a lot of them are engaged in this. So that already would give somebody leverage over that, at least. Because if you're a married professional and you get a divorce, you just lost half of your stuff.
Right, and I'm going to stop you a second. When you say they've been found guilty, is it human transportation, bringing the girls out of state, out of country, etc.? Is that what they found?
Well, it's like, okay, so it's not that. In fact, it's actually transportation, not the other one. The one, say, like they would call the Andrew Tristan Tate, that word. That one, they're not charged with that, which is odd, because they enticed them to come over, some from other states, some all the way from Asia. So that's international transportation. But the women were motivated completely by money. Like, they weren't forced or controlled. They chose, it was the deal that they enticed them with was that you're going to have a ready clientele of men. They're going to be all, wealthy professionals and vetted. And they did vet them in. They had, this is their downfall too, because they got their names, phone numbers, address, references Like you had to have a reference from your employer or whatever, because the front company they were using was, well, they had two websites of nude modeling for professional photographers. So someone's going to come get naked in your studio or whatever for photos. It was definitely, they knew what it was. And they would give them menus. They had 3 different cell phones they were using with local numbers. So they give them coded stuff that apparently all these perverts know what all these abbreviations means. Is BB something is like bareback, means no contraception on the penis and stuff. GFE, girlfriend experience, all these lists of activities you can do, because it's not just sex, it's oral sex, it's all the, you know what it is. And it was just like a menu, but a very expensive menu. Some was a little lowest, was maybe $350 for certain things. Pretty standard, $600 to $800 an hour. So I guess they were good at what they did. And a lot of these men had so much money, it didn't matter. They wanted a place, they wanted a particular type of woman, and they had it. So they're being charged because Lady of the Nighting is illegal. But what's odd is the girls themselves aren't being charged. The owners that rented the buildings, that organized it, that did the booking, that did the vetting, that did all the rest of the operation, other than the actual Lady of the Nighting, they're all in big trouble. And so they're also in trouble for wire fraud, and a number of other things, because James Lee, the oldest of the bunch, get this, he got $580,000. That's more than $500,000 from COVID cash through the Small Business Administration, some paycheck scam program. He used every relief thing there was and ended up with over $500,000 from that. That's not even including the revenue they got from the actual business. That's just revenue they got from fictitious businesses and things that were collecting money. Might be why they got busted, because the government doesn't like you to steal from it. And because they weren't paying taxes on it, obviously, it's an illegal activity. But usually when someone has an operation like this, they have some other activity with the far lower price and all. They at least say that's what's going on, and they paid for the photography or whatever, They messed up and didn't do that. So they were paying in cash. And then the Lees, let's just call them, they would get money orders and stuff, and they would pay off the utilities and the rent and thing on the 9 different buildings through that, which was clever. But ultimately things fell apart, and one pleaded guilty after another. Now, when they got the Booker's cell phones, there's 2 that they have and 1 they don't have. One of the ones near Washington, D.C., or Nova, which is Northern Virginia, it's like they don't have that one. And that might be the most important one, because that's your DC politicians and lobbyists, because all the lobbyists live in a little donut around DC, in Fairfax and McLean and these counties in Northern Virginia. They don't have that phone. So that means of the 2 phones they have, which has all the conversations, there's 2,800 names. So let's say that conservatively, there's probably 1,000 more on the 3rd phone. And that would be if it's not even equal to the other 2, because there's 1,400 each, let's say. So the average, let's say 1,000 more names. So you're looking at, 3,800 to 4,000 or more Johns in the operation. And we only have 28 having hearings. And there's 2 more hearings this month. They were going to be April. They moved them up. So all 28 of those, and possibly like 3 or 4 more, will have their names, and we'll know what their punishment is going to be. But they asked, I have a journalist who went to the hearing this morning, my time, or yesterday in the US. And this person was asking the prosecutor, he was talking to the people there. He said, how do we have 2,800 names, or 2,800 names, and we only have 28 Johns, and only 2 of them showed up to court? Only 12 names were released. 10 guys just sent a lawyer. They were requested to come to court, by the way, but these people, they're above it. they're wealthy. So like, I ain't doing that. They sent a lawyer. That's not going to sit well with the judge. Two of the younger guys showed up. One of them is a radiologist, and he's married, and he's married. He won't be married for much longer. That's falling apart, and he seemed remorseful. At least he showed up, so that's something for him. And the other one, what was it? He was also in the medical field, I think, and he came. And I got the list there. I'll tell you which one he was. But you know, the rest of them, they just blew off the court. And that's not going to work well for them. You can tell that right away. Let's see. Yeah, the oldest individual didn't come.
I'm curious, Brian. Earlier on, you said it's a honey trap. Who are they honey trapping for? Is it been outsourced to these guys, or are they doing it for a certain nation? Or
yeah, I mean, the fact that they're all Korean, you'd think North Korea or South Korea. I mean, it's your only options, but the South Korea has no reason to and gain what exactly? We already have pretty good relations between the U.S. and South Korea, and that's such a risk and so much more to lose than what you would gain. But there are other states that would just use Korean and Japanese women are pretty sought after, and so if you're targeting certain people, that is you want the yellow fever or whatever, or that's just what they knew. Who knows? But the countries, they always throw out Russia, China, and Israel, because those three have very active, aggressive spying on the United States. But I don't see evidence for a foreign state. If I did, trust me, I would say so. I mean, I have, when like this one, this was the Israelis 100%. I don't know that it's a state. I think the blackmail is just to enrich the Lees so far. And if I get more evidence, I'll say so. But it seemed like, no, they're gaining leverage over these people. And of course, what happens is, I don't know if you know what a hooking point, if you've ever heard of that, but you can gather blackmail and then sell it to other people, to the high bidder. You can auction that off. Like, look, that guy giving you problems. They'd love to catch Thomas Massey. He wouldn't engage in this, but if you get somebody who has trouble, all you got to do is talk to the brothel. So what? Oops, ladies of the night location. I mean, what I did is I figured a lot of these girls, they're high end. They're going to be getting their hair and nails done and stuff. So I just looked for the most adjacent Korean salon in the area and talked to them, and turns out the hairdressers knew all the chicks, and so I got a lot of information right away on the Johns, and I got some of the names that weren't released yet. So if they don't, I'm not going to release them if they're going to release them anyway. But if it doesn't come out, it's going to come out. It'll be up on the wall or whatever I got to do, because I've got the names, and I can already say how I got it sourced, because I already have the information. So eat it. It's already been spilled, and they didn't mind. They're like, yeah, it was whatever. But one of the names in LA is someone who got a presidential pardon. That is one of the rumored names.
Really?
Yeah, we all know who he is. Hunting for such a thing. I bet you can figure it out. It's just like you just got cleared, and that might make sense why the pardon went all the way until a specific day of the month. He went back and cleared them all the way from like 2014 to last year of the month, the same time that this ring gets busted. Who knows?
Wow.
But yeah, it's just nasty. And I'm like, okay, if they're involved, then you start seeing that is a state power. But sometimes when you gather blackmail on people, it's a type of insurance. Like, even people who are on your side, it prevents them from ever being able to leave. So we'll find out soon. The more names we get, and I haven't had time to go. I mean, I got a bunch of names and like where they work and stuff, but I haven't had time to figure out who they are, if they know each other. I just got this today and yesterday. So, I mean, I've known about the Lees for months. But I didn't have the idea of like, hey, why don't I look up a Korean salon and see what could happen? And I had to wait for it to be open and da, da, da. But yeah, we got some good dirt. But yeah, there anyway, the journalist that went to the hearing in Cambridge, they haven't had the Virginia one yet. He told me that this is what they said to him. He said, and he asked, why are there only 28 Johns when there are, 2,800 on the two phones? And they turned and said, oh, I guess my clients are just the unlucky ones, huh? Saying, yeah, they didn't bribe the cops and the other ones did. That's what that means. They're so sure of themselves that 10 of those 12 didn't go to court. Now, they did send a lawyer, but if the judge requests you to be there in person and they're releasing your name, you ought to be there. Don't mess with the judge. It's a lady judge, by the way, so might have a little bit more sympathy for these women. Now, the ladies of the night, they are engaged in illegal activity, but they are being treated as victims, which is weird. They're all adults and they know what they're doing and they know that's illegal. So they can't be 100% victim, but that's what they're being treated, which means they all probably did plea bargains. That would be my guess, because that is illegal and you will get busted. You will get punished for that. And they immediately flipped on the lees. And I'm sure there's more than 3 people in this operation. So yeah, that's my assumption. That's not a fact, but I'm going to assume that they pleaded out of it. But the fact that we have so few people now, the cops, they did surveillance work and compared it with the phone data. So you have the phone data with the coded, this much for this activity, this much for that activity. And the Johns walking in the building for a set amount of time, walking out of the building. They got them on film, going in and out, right after texting about what they wanted to do. Da, 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 da. They have the cash. I sent you some pictures on Twitter. I don't know if you can put them up or not, whatever. But there's some photos of the girls from the website. There's some photos of like just stacks of $100 bills where they're doing this. So those people that they surveilled, they're not. It doesn't matter how wealthy they are. That's really hard to wiggle out of. But there's so many more, recorded in both the booking spreadsheet. They had an actual paper book. It wasn't just digital. They did it, which is smart to not do it digitally, but it's not smart to have it on paper if the feds get your paper book. You're supposed to toss that, whatever. So that wasn't wiped. And they have that, and it's in Korean, but FBI has Korean translators, no problem. Yeah, there's the gift card and stuff. Best Buy, I mean, they just put the items, right? So there's this stack of what looks to be, 2 stacks of hundreds and some 50s and 20s. Those stacks are probably 10,000 a piece, it looks like. Just eyeballing it. I don't know. Not that you would know anything about that, Sean. How much is that, Sean? You're like, this much. It looks like well over that. And that was just on one table. And, there was millions wrapped up. I mean, there's $500,000 in fraud from James Lee. So he'll get the worst of it for that, for the wire fraud. In addition, the other 2 leads, I mean, they knew what he was doing. They knew he did it. So they're accomplices to that. But
you've been asked why were they targeting pharma execs?
It's not clear that was the target. They just put out a spider web for the elected politicians, and these are some of the people that end up in it. But it's just like if you get a big pharma, if you get an executive of whatever, great. I mean, it's extra. If you're selling hooking points, how much is that worth? How much is this guy? This guy's a radiologist. This guy works for big pharma. This guy's a lobbyist. This guy's that. Whoever you get, you get. But the fact that they're hovering around DC and those particular colleges, that is something. Now you could argue, well, it's just like a rich place and a good place to have I don't want to say the word, the place where the ladies of the night work. Maybe, but none of them lived in DC or Northern Virginia, and they put them there. That's a kind of odd. And there's a lot of states between Massachusetts and Virginia. There was not nothing in between. It was like here and here. These are the places. And like I said, something was going on in LA, and this is not, LA hasn't acted on it. It's California is as corrupt as it is possible to be. Virginia popped them, Massachusetts popped them. They're obviously going back and forth into LA on airplanes for somebody, for something. So there's clients over there and there's a location over there. But LAPD hasn't done anything. I mean, they don't even have a functional fire department. So that's LA. I don't expect anything out of LA. LA in Los Angeles, in several cities in California, people are allowed to just walk in and steal up to $950 worth of stuff and leave. And you can't prosecute them. So, like, it's run by criminals. Gavin Newsom's a criminal all the way down. LA is run by criminals, so they don't care. But Nova does, and Cambridge certainly does. You know, that's pretty unbecoming to have those, even if it's high-end night workers. But they got them. And so the 14th, that was today. This thing is already being dwarfed down in magnitude compared to what it is. You can see it's what do you say, not gatekeeping, but they're limiting the scope of this because there were thousands of Johns. How can you only have dozens being charged? That doesn't make sense. It seems like two-tier justice. And so if the guys that are working in these pretty, high level 6-figure jobs are the low tier clients that are getting thrown under the bus, how powerful are the ones that aren't being charged? And you look at the portion, that was who they were targeting. These other ones are the ones that weren't the targets, but got in, know someone who was, because this stuff's sort of word of mouth. They had the websites, but you'd have to know to go there, know the code, and and they had references and things. They were really trying to keep this secret. It doesn't follow this group's MO at all, and they already run Congress, so they don't need that. So it's interesting why the universities and then the politicians. And so the most valuable thing that universities have are the R&D, because they team up with private industry on trade secrets and things. That's something Wexner was targeting for the Israelis in his ring with Jeffrey and Maxey and Bernelli, those people. But this one, yeah, we're gonna find out. It's a weird thing too. For usually Koreans aren't the ones doing this type of thing, but these three did it. So were they working for someone else? Time will tell. But we're not going to have enough intel until we can go through the rest of the names. Now, the names I got the way I got them. And I did the same thing in Virginia that I did in Massachusetts. You know where these girls hang out. You know who they talk to. So go, call up the salons, call up the regular places, see what kind of information you can get. And you just need one person talking. And then you tell, well, someone already told me this, even if they hadn't. And then they confess to it. Now that you know it, because they just said it. Those kind of things. Typical journalist tricks. So we'll have it, and I'll have the list as large as I can compile and see what all the Johns have in common, if anything. They could just be trying to make money and believe this was an industry that would work. Virginia and Massachusetts are very far away from Vegas. This ladies of the nighting is illegal in the United States everywhere except for one state and one city. So that's the distance from Virginia to, say, Las Vegas. You might as well just go to England or Amsterdam. Like, it's almost as far. Well, that's an exaggeration, but maybe to Hawaii. But it's a good 5 or 6 hour flight sometimes. So, and then you got to be there 2 hours early, and they're just not going to do it. And it's just amazing to me that so many married men very high profile jobs would basically risk their career and their life and engage it just to be with a woman that they saw the picture of online, and they were willing to pay thousands of dollars to do it too. The $1,000 to sleep with someone is okay. If you're rich, that isn't a lot of money, so whatever. But the fact that you're risking your reputation, your life, your property, your marriage, your respect, possibly your job, just to do that is something as a society we should think about, like why men need that so much that they're willing to throw a lifetime of work and career down the toilet for a night with a young, sexy woman. But
Isn't
it
this
isn't just like a
why-
couple guys. These is thousands of men that did this.
Isn't this why honey trap operations are so successful? Because they can always capitalize on that drive.
It is, and there seems to be a correlation from people who are extremely driven in work, have high libido, and so what is to their advantage, something they're supplementing that energy to drive to work the 16-hour days and things that you have to do in the beginning to reach that point. Not everybody, some people just inherit or whatever, but you know what I mean. That is still a weakness on the other side, because by having such a high sex drive, they just don't have any foresight. They don't think past tomorrow or whatever. They just want it, and they do it, and they mess their whole life. Maybe a sex psychologist could come up with a better reason. I mean, I don't know why people do things that can put them in jail. Like, you have a good life, you have money, you have a wife that you chose, so do it with her. I don't know. Maybe they picked bad women. I don't know. But a lot of these guys are doing it, and they're paying a lot of money, and they were going more than one time. It wasn't like they did it once and felt guilty, and they kept going back. And, the menu is pretty diverse, let's just say, of the things they were allowed to do. And yeah, one of them that showed up in court today, like, he was paid. He just wanted to raw dog it. So, they test him and everything, and she's on the pill, so no babies. And that's what he wanted to do. Hey, who paid a lot of money to to engage in coitus without contraception. Say it like that. Yeah.
So when you're describing the personality traits of these people, then does Bill Clinton come to mind?
I mean, these girls were of age, though.
So he's worse.
I think he probably started with of age or barely of age and then got worse. Because back in Arkansas, and even with his Monica days, they were always like at least 20, all of his accusers. It didn't get to Jeffrey level until later. There's something, maybe, I think, in American culture that there's a degree of external validation where it's seen as like a conquest, like a collection, like, I got this girl. And so it's status among other guys that you bang this girl. But I just feel like, but you didn't get that girl. You paid for it. So it doesn't matter. Like, you just bought something. It wasn't like she likes you at all. Just, you found someone willing to exchange that for money. That's a business transaction. But I guess it's a little bit of self-validation too. Like, they want to have that experience with that caliber of female. They're unable to obtain it, or maybe they could, but if they put all the time it would take to do that, and their career would offer. So the quickest thing is to put all their time in the career and then just buy it. Perhaps that's it. I don't know. I don't know why they do this. Like I said, they could just fly to Vegas and do it legally if that's your thing and not have any risk.
But with people like Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew, they weren't actually paying. It was Epstein paying the girls, wasn't it?
Well, they were paying him through listening to his demands. So a lot of times, technically, they never pay the girl. They pay someone, and then that person pays the girl, or the other way around. That person pays for the girl, and then they invite them, and it's understood like, hey, I didn't pay, but they're playing stupid because someone did it on your behalf, and that you're being rewarded because you are obeying what that person wanted. And that's what they do. But they'd be like, no cash change. I never gave her a dime. And they could say that, and it's true because they didn't give her any money, but they gave money or they gave favors to somebody, and then that person paid the girl. And they know it's always an exchange, though.
So what about the evolving story of Pam Bondi and the list and the nonsense? We talked about the PR stuff.
It's like you're not going to get a list, okay? the list is right here, and the list is written on my back. I wrote it down. But that's all you're going to get, and it's up on the wall, and that's not the whole list on that wall. That's some big ones, but that's there's no file on that. There's no file on UFOs. They don't have missing 9/11 documents or any of this crap. You're not going to get the juicy stuff on any of either Kennedy killing or Martin Luther King. It's not happening. They promised a bunch of stuff before they got into office, realized all of those things go back to Israel, and that's why they're secret. Like if the Americans had done it alone, it would have come out. It would have been like Iran-Contra, and you would have had hearings, and people probably would have had their sentences commuted or something, but somebody would have been punished a little bit. Ollie North got grilled. Anthony Poindexter got convicted of conspiracy. There were people that got punished for things like that. But whenever Israel does anything, then they can genocide their neighbors, and America will send them guns and money. So that's what I think happened is Patel and Bondi thought, yeah, get the list. Because they just thought, oh, why should we protect a bunch of perverts and murderers? Until they found out it links back to Israel. And then they realized, oh, I'll lose my job if I say anything about the sacred ones. So they did this stupid binder gate where they released already redundant files to a bunch of Zionist influencers, which just made it even more obvious. And then they said they had truckloads of documents and the FBI was withholding, and they didn't have any. They didn't even have a folder load, much less truckloads. They got nothing from the FBI. Now they're saying, oh, well, Patel's going to do it. He is not. They don't have a client list. It doesn't exist. That stuff was burned.
Can I read you what she's just announced, what Pam Bondi's just announced?
Let's hear the greatest copium.
All right. So she said, this is yesterday, that she has now received a truckload of unreleased documents related to Jeffrey. And she is saying more files are coming, but she's providing no timeline about when these documents could be made public, weeks after the hype of blah, blah, blah. So she said yesterday that Cash is going to give me a deadline on when he can go through the documents to protect, of course, the victims of the carnal transportation. Mm-hmm. And the FBI will, quote, get out as much as we can, as fast as we can, but not offer the timeline. She also spoke to Sean Hannity, saying she has received this truckload of documents from FBI's Southern District of New York field office. She's saying the DOJ is going through the documents as fast as they can, and they are going to come out. Although she did not say when, and she added she wants a full report on why the documents allegedly sat at the FBI's New York field office. A reporter asked the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, this week about Bondi's claim she received the truckload, questioning when they were released. And Leavitt says she does not have a timeline and referred the report to the Department of Justice. So that is the latest on that one. Is it more musical chairs?
First of all, it's hyperbole. They don't literally have a truck full of paper. And here's how you can protect the victims. We already have over $460 million in settled lawsuits between Deutsche Bank and Prince Andrew and Leon Black and obviously JP Morgan Chase of payments to victims. So why are you protecting the Johns? You can already figure out, like Jess Staley from Barclays was a John, because he has emails with Jeffrey talking about what they did and dressing them up in little uniforms and stuff, all that crap. There are a lot of things like that where like you already know who the customers are because it's in the court documents, not a secret or anything. These aren't redacted. They are available online and have been for years. There was a huge dump January 3rd of 2023, or it's just no reaction. You have these names, and what happened was, or excuse me, 2024, whatever, January 3rd, they meaning the media, they come out with these stupid, gossipy celebrity headlines, Cameron Diaz, Leonardo DiCaprio, whatever. And then you read it and it's just Stephen Hawkins or something. They throw out knowable, recognizable celebrity type names, and then it's a nothing burger. It's just the context was I was asked, have any of these names been in such parties? No. Have you ever seen any of these people come on the property? No. Have you ever seen any of these people at any of the dinners? No. Okay. So their names in the document, in a way that completely exonerates them. And what the media doesn't do is tell you whose names are in the document who are not exonerated. All these hedge fund managers, Glenn Dubin, that's a billionaire. That should be a big deal. You got a billionaire R-wording little kids. Nobody cares. And him and his wife and his daughter are meeting with Bill Gates, another multi-billionaire who's a cheater and all that too. That ought to be a big deal, but it's not, because the public just are drama farming and they just want celebrities. They want it to be Tom Hanks or Justin Bieber or whatever. And they don't care that, like, it's just not entertaining enough for it to be boring hedge fund managers and bankers and brokerage firm guy. But that's what it is. That's who's on this list mostly. Now, there are some politicians. I mean, Clinton, that's a big deal. Ehud Barak, that's a prime minister. That's a big deal. Obviously, Prince Andrew. And they know those names. But the bulk of it, and really the donor class that runs the world, aren't very exciting or famous, but very powerful. And that is who he targeted, was the donor class. And there's no way those names are ever coming out from the government because they pay the government. I'm surprised they even arrested them at all. Of course, Burnell and Jeffrey end up swinging from a bedsheet. And Maxwell, that trial was such a farce. Like, they wouldn't allow Sergeant Dawson's testimony about the box of recordings. They just kept it out. It was a total whitewash. Our government is not going to give you a client list. I wish they would. I think Bondi and them, some of them, they might be naive enough to think that that they are able to do this. That 45-day window on the executive orders on JFK, RFK, and MLK, has already passed. And you didn't get a single piece of paper, much less a truckload. You're not going to get anything. It's all these trust the plan types. They're like, any moment now. It's on her desk. It's truckloads, but it fit on her desk. It fits in a binder. Now it fits in, a truck. If they release anything, this is what it'll be. It'll be the same January 3rd document dump, which is thousands of pages. But that document dump was itself redundant information that we already had. Because I read through the whole thing thinking, okay, they're saying they had like 77 more names than what I had. So I'm like, who's the missing people? And they did not have 77 names that I didn't have. They had 77 different new names, but every single one of them, the context was just a name that's in the document. Oh, they flew on a plane. Big deal. Like, that's not we're looking for the ones that engaged in the activity, either white collar crime with Jeffrey or, you know what, with the kitty fiddling. That's not, oh, he knew this. He had a picture with this person. That doesn't matter. Like, they knew way more people than who were involved in their business. Everybody does, obviously. And not everyone they targeted took the bait. And you got to be really clear when you're going to make an accusation as big as the R word. You can't just say, well, they're in the black book, so guilty. That's not enough. It's a data point. It's more than nothing, but that is not enough to go on. Oh, they're in the black. They flew on a plane. Okay, that's a little bit stronger. Where did they go? Okay, and you know, I don't know. I don't expect to get any more advancement on that issue. I think it's dead. I think it's been Alex Jonesed to the point where, you know, I can wave around the client lists and people are like, where's the client list? And I'm sitting there right here. It's right here. I'll read it to you right now. And they're just, they need the guy on TV to tell them the exact same thing. Even though I can tell you why and where each name I have in these books. Like, here's the file. Here's where it mentioned what they're doing, when they did it, what girl they did it to, all that. It doesn't matter. In fact, on your shows, we've gone over some of it. We had like probably, I don't know, 12 hours of worth of stuff, probably going over the people that were purchasing women. And I don't know. I don't know how to get people to listen. Like this case I'm talking about with the Lees, zero interest, other than the Hunter connection might get some interest. But same thing with Robert Miller, to a degree, Peter Nygaard. And then both those cases, it was underage, just like Epstein. Nobody cares unless they care about P. Diddy, but not because of natural empathy or principle that, you know, what he did was wrong. It's because he's a celebrity. And that bothers me deeply. Why do you only care if it's a celebrity? It doesn't matter who it was. Robert Miller is a billionaire. He was the richest man of Quebec, and he ruined the lives of hundreds of girls that he had threesomes with, high school girls. Okay. He messed up a lot of families. They don't care. Okay. Well, I do, but you can't get attention on these stories unless there is a celebrity. And even with the Jeffrey story, if you didn't have Clinton and Prince Andrew, you know, or possibly Trump because of the Acosta connection, there's a tacit connection, it wouldn't be a story. No one would care. That's sad.
You got a few questions coming about this. So Emma wants to know, I know no one affiliated with Epstein will ever be prosecuted. Do you think this will continue? And are they going to shut down this part of intelligence?
They've been prosecuted, though. I mean, he got prosecuted, Maxwell got prosecuted, and Jean-Luc Brunel got prosecuted. The top three people of that operation all did go to prison. And then other people in the operation they had settlements in the tens of millions of dollars a piece. So they weren't prosecuted and thrown in prison like they ought to be, but they had to pay tens of millions of dollars to make it go away. Here's your hush money. Like, make it go away. So that happened. Leon Black had to pay out the nose. Andrew had to pay out the nose. And a lot of these executive stuff is still ongoing. But they're just going to pay their way out of it. And their name won't.
What about Wexner? How did Wexner get out of it?
Wexner, well, he works for Israeli intelligence. They're not going to touch him. Wexner's involved with the other Jeffrey case from Abercrombie and Finch. We went over that too with the homosexual ring they were doing, forcing young men to have enemas and shaving all the hair off their body. Man, that was Wexner too. He put him in power. He knew what was going on. And these little escapades aren't just for their jollies. It was compromise. And Les Wexner and the Wexner Foundation helps funnel money to Zionist organizations and even politicians. So they look at the Abigail Wexner, Les and Abigail Wexner Foundation, and all the little LLC cutouts they've made, and the money that's going around is, hop, skip, and a jump away. You've got the ADL, the SPLC, Reporting, Carbine, and a bunch of companies in Israel. They're moving money around into political coffers. He is a financial instrument, but because he owns these modeling agencies, Victoria's Secret, LL Brands, Abercrombie, all that, you can imagine that, look, this crap is going on in every single one of those branches. But it's a perfect front to get young women and men, in case of Abercrombie, roped into these businesses. And some modeling agencies, many of them, in fact, are very shady. MC2 from Burnell, same thing, used to be called Karen Models when it started in Tel Aviv before it went to Paris. Then it comes over to the United States. They're housing the women and properties from Jeffrey's brother, Mark, and usually living adjacent to, I'm being very careful with my language, the Wexner gifted home. Okay. Ari Ben Menashe said Maxwell was already part of it. So was her father. She brought him into the business being Israeli intelligence. That was a honey trap operation. And they targeted the donor class and science and technology to steal trade secrets for the Israeli state. And they were robbing the Americans blind. They have so many people compromised. I mean, you had the highest target. Bill Clinton was president. William Burns was the head of the CIA. It doesn't get any better than that. If you're blackmailing a country, you have the head of the intelligence and the head of the executive. It doesn't get much better than that. And then we had 3 speakers of the House in a row who were sexually compromised. Dennis Hastert with little boys. So that's the level of depravity we're at. We just don't have honest people in government. The Ron Pauls and Thomas Masseys are super rare. A lot of these people have no self-control, especially around young women. And, they're willing to sacrifice whatever to get it. And I was just like, man, just go to Vegas, Thailand, whatever. If that's your thing, it's something you have to do, then at least do it legally so you don't get blackmailed. Although you could still blackmail somebody because the activity itself, even when it is legal, is very frowned upon. But, come on. If somebody approaches you at let's say a UN party, and they look like a teenager, they probably are. Okay. If you're 60-something years old and a 10 is hitting on you, it's a honey trap. You're not charming. You're not funny. You're getting played.
A few people are asking, where can they get a hoodie with the list map printed on it, Ryan?
Well, Sean has linked to the site. It's antineocon.com. And you can get this hat, you can get this hoodie, or you can get this as a t-shirt, depending on where you live, what the weather is. Maps are there: Biden, New Mex, the Anthrax 9/11 timeline, and of course the Jeffrey map.
Link is in the live chat. I just put it in, and if you're watching on replay, it is in the description box below the video, as is Ryan's X. So keep your questions coming in, folks. Bailey wants to know, when is Maxwell being released? She got 20 years, Bailey. You do 85% in the feds. That was 2022. She's done 3 years of it. So do the maths. Probably got about 14, I'm guessing. About 14.
Yeah, like, and how old is she now? When she gets out, she won't have much time left. She's spending her birthday was on Christmas, so she gets a double Christmas birthday in jail.
Oh, Ryan, who are the names of the Danes on the list? Any Danes come to mind?
Well, you mean the ladies of the Knights? That's a lot of Kim, Park, and Lee.
Not on the Epstein list.
Oh, there's a lot of. There were over 200 women. So the worst of the bunch, I guess, would have been Sarah Kellen, because she was, an active recruiter and flew around with them. She got immunity in that first sweetheart deal, so can't do anything.
Is Larry Fink on any of the lists? Jen wants to know.
Diamond is Jamie Dimon
Yeah.
is who threw Jess Staley under the bus. He's like, I didn't know him. I had no idea that all this money from this guy was. He's playing stupid. He absolutely knew. And the thing is with those guys too is, and you have to remember, you can go back. Well, all these shows are gone, I guess. But the second show Sean and I did ever, I went over the financial crimes at Bear Stearns and liquid funding. These way they were moving around commercial paper and getting money from the New York Federal Reserve. These Epstein and Hoffman pulled Ponzi schemes at Tower Financial, but at Bear Stearns, Epstein was deep in with Ace Greenberg and those guys in absolute white collar crime. And then he's moving the money around in Jamie Dimon's banks. And of course, Jamie Dimon, there's always some plausible deniability where he can just be like, no, I just didn't know. I'm incredibly stupid. And I had no idea why a bunch of teenagers are getting $20,000 a month hush pay money payments. Like, yes, you did. You had to know. Like, well, our guy that handled that was Staley. It was not all Staley. I don't have sympathy for Jess Staley, but a little bit. I do. A little bit. Because, like, he is getting blamed for all of it. When that whole network was corrupt. And I'll tell you this, before Jeffrey and Maxie, there were many complaints about Bear Stearns from women that work there about the conditions and the sexual harassment and so on, way before the undressing in front of them and like that kind of culture. And I can't stand feminists during that either. I think that's too far the other direction, but there was a lot of chauvinistic, BS going on at these companies. It still is.
All right. So your next question then is,
that's his last photo, I believe. It's right after the 1953 trust.
Yeah. All right. So M13's beat me to my next question, and I'll give my input because I did listen to the Joe Rogan Ian Carroll podcast, and M13 saying, Ryan, you got shouted out positively by Ian Carroll on Joe Rogan. I don't know if you saw that, but for the good info he got from you. So I was watching Ian Carroll. He said he's been doing it for 2 years. And it's like he's very charismatic. He's putting the videos together.
I love that. But like 2 years. I've been doing this for 25 years. But I get skipped over. But it's good for him.
He needs someone like you to fill the rest of the blanks in because he's doing a good job. He's going in the
I
right
think he's doing a
direction.
great job for 2 years in. But it's like, I don't want to sound bitter, but I should be in that chair. Because I know this way better than he does or ever will.
But you've been blacklisted too much to be in that chair, haven't you?
I didn't know he shouted me out. I think that's great because most people don't. Most people will just steal the info, make a career, and off they go. They won't say anything. So good on him. But I'm a little frustrated. Like if I absolutely, if I'm asked to be on a show about some topic and I know someone that's done it, decades longer than me, you know what I'll do? I'll say, you ought to ask this person. But, Rogan, big opportunity, just go, dude. But I think that's the best decision he can make is go on the show and mention my name. I didn't know that he did because I haven't had time to watch all the things. But I heard that they got into like the pyramids and aliens and a bunch of stuff. And I know Rogan's entertainment, but I'm like, okay, but I really don't want to mix Jeffrey stuff and 9/11 stuff with UFO and DMT and all that crap. It just makes it sound like kooky conspiracy stuff.
Have you spoke to Ian Carroll?
We DM on X sometimes.
Have you sent him your book?
I think he is a really good consumer rights activist too. He's like a younger Ralph Nader as far as just like drilling in. Look at how this company owns all these brands in the store. I see these videos all the time. And he plugged my Numek film too. He's one of the few people, him and Jake Shields, that will watch one of my movies and gain information and actually say where they got it from. Because a lot of people won't. They just be like, look what I did. Like, you didn't.
Have you sent him your book?
I haven't sent him the book, but he's watched all the films and stuff. He told me he watched Empire Unmasked like more than one time. I was like, wow, that's cool. So
Yeah, but he's quite a reader as well. I'd like to send him my Clinton, Bush, and CIA conspiracies if you can get an address out of him.
Yeah, you should. I mean, he'll read it.
It would answer some of the
Yeah,
questions.
I'd give him a free book, whatever. I think that guy also got hold of Elon Musk. You know, Elon was saying some stupid stuff about Israel, and he got on his case. So that's what we need. We need more of that. We also need a lot of people being over. Like I see people getting angry about this, and like, you need to just work together, okay? But there's certain people, you have to have a social media presence. Like Ian's allowed on TikTok, for example. A lot of us are not. We can't have YouTube, we can't have Instagram, we can't have Facebook, we can't have it. So there's advantage. You can build your Twitter up a lot faster if you have all these on ramps from other platforms to link to your stuff as well, you know. And so there are going to be people like my friend Jake Shields probably has more followers than like Elon Pape or something, or Gilad Osman, or these people put in 30, 40 years on the Palestine conflict and they're not noticed. I go, well, that's not their fault. Like the audience is deciding the thing. They didn't like do that to you. But the censorship, they probably would have a bigger audience had they not been censored the whole time. Because almost all these people have been censored. I was really happy to see Norman Finkelstein get on Piers Morgan, because the dues are owed. You know, Norman Finkelstein has been put in decades of research and book writing and sacrifice, and got, you know, lost his job over it, and slandered, defamed, censored, all that. And so I was really happy to see him get on Piers Morgan and get some recognition and credibility for all the work that he's done, but more so because he is one of the best people to deliver the message. Now, I think it's just fine too if someone like Dan Bilzerian gets on Piers Morgan and delivers the message the best that he can. But he will never be on the same level as Norman Finkelstein. And that's not a diss on Dan. Almost nobody is on the level of Norman Finkelstein. And that is the guy I want. Finkelstein, I want Gideon Livy, I want the Grant F. Smith, I want them, you know. I want Grant F. Smith more than Dave Smith. And that's not a diss on Dave Smith, but Grant F. Smith is 100 times more knowledgeable than Dave Smith. I want Scott Horton talking about Ukraine. Okay. There's other people that get on the show and get to talk about Ukraine. I'm like, that's great, but this is the guy. Okay. And so it's very big of people, though, like when they get this giant opportunity to be on a show like Rogan or whatever, to be a big enough man or woman to say, you know, who knows this better than me? This person, because they're like hurting their own opportunity. You can't expect them to always do that. So you shouldn't say you suck for not doing it, but you're very big for doing it. But I know I do it. I always promote other people on these things. I just did right now. Like, these are the people you should talk to about these things. These other people are great and they're doing their best. And it's like, who all gets attention and stuff isn't up to them. But what I find super shitty is when someone just pilfers someone else's work to get on a show, takes all their talking points and stuff, and acts like that's their thoughts, and it ain't. And I'm like, you're just plagiarizing other people. That's all. You're making a career off of plagiarism.
There's a lot of them out there.
There's a lot.
On Ukraine, I just had Alex Kramer on. Have you done anything with him? He's brilliant.
Not yet. I mean, my usual go-tos on Ukraine on my show are Scott Ritter and Larry Johnson, sometimes Matthew Ho, and
Douglas McGregor.
I haven't had Doug on the show either, but he's great. I mean, that would be that's another one. Ray McGovern's a great one on Ukraine too. Depending, I mean, you're talking about the war. He's good on Russian history, all that stuff. Like I think Ray McGovern is A+, all those things. But yeah, there's a lot of good people on Ukraine. But I would say on the case for just arguing the war, like how it got in, the provoked, and who wrote the book, it's Scott Horton. You know, and I feel like and it's probably because Scott was writing the book, all these other guys did more shows, Judge Napolitano and so they're well known. But Scott can he can just spit out the facts and go through and argue, and He's great. And he was on Piers Morgan too. As much as I don't like Piers Morgan, he is one of the best of the like establishment class that'll actually have on guests that threaten the system. Because you will never see those type of guests on, three-letter networks. That's not happening. So props to Pierce.
Guess who I've got on Monday?
I don't know. What's
Gerald Salente.
Okay, yeah. I might be having him on too. We've been talking on Twitter.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, he's fun.
He gets hyper.
But these people too, the ones that have been around doing it 2 or 3 years or whatever, they're awesome. Like it doesn't matter that some of them are young. Like they couldn't do it 30 years ago. They weren't even alive. It just is what it is. But I don't have that much time left. So I'm like, look, if you want me to explain September 11th or Epstein or one of these things, like it's not like a pissy match. Like I am the person that is the most knowledgeable. So that's the only reason. Like I want to go in because I think I can affect the most change. I don't care about the rest of it. Like I know the Iraq war and the Syrian war really well too, but there are people who know it better, and I will always defer to them.
All right, we've got a few more questions. So Casey wants to know your thoughts on the Ford Modeling Agency.
What do you mean? Are you talking about the cars, or are you talking about Ford modeling?
Ford modeling, like as in, Victoria's Secrets and all that kind of thing.
Oh, well, kind of answered that already. Like there is something wrong with that whole industry. A lot of entertainment too, like music, films, modeling, especially modeling. I think AI is going to take over modeling, but lingerie modeling and that kind, especially, and then things with children's models like Abercrombie. There's just got to be a certain look and stuff, and you've got models as young as 12. If you're a parent, my oldest son gets recruited all the time. He's handsome, I guess, and that was in Japan, and it's it's not completely safe there either, but it's a little better than LA or and I have one of my parents in the fashion industry, owned clothing stores, so I'd been around that business with models and stuff since I was a kid. And in fact, I even got the model just because I'm an identical twin and it's neat or whatever. It's not like I'm a model, but doing that thing when I was younger. So I've been around, I've been in fashion shows, I've seen that. I've gone to the expos and buyers club. I understand the industry. I talk to a lot of models, and sometimes it's just fine. It's just a job. They enjoy it. They get some money for it. They get to meet a lot of other models. They get a lot of opportunities. They get a lot of perks. They get a lot of free stuff. They get to go to a lot of hotels for free and places for free and stuff that they couldn't afford otherwise. So that's like part of the payment. However, anytime you have an industry specifically of a bunch of beautiful people, especially young people, it's going to attract scumbags. And there will be the equivalent of a casting couch, whether it's for the music or acting or the modeling or some related thing like that. TV, commercial, all of it too. And every age. They have no limits on, not them. They will do it if they can do it. They don't care if your kid is 8 years old. In fact, I think they would care if they were 3 years old. Hollywood is disgusting. And I'll tell you, Corey Feldman, who, you can say he's weird or whatever, that's because he was abused. He told the truth. And no one listened. And he gave name. He finally came out and he started naming names, and it was, it didn't matter. And that's got to be the most devastating thing when they finally get the courage to come out and say, this person at these soda pop parties did this to me. I just woke up with my nuts in his mouth, whatever. And you tell the world, and there's no consequence, nothing happens. But I mean, then you have people like Woody Allen that adopted a girl and then married her, and it's not even spoken ill of about it. And he was friends with this person. And yeah, it's just Roman Polanski, another one. These producers and stuff. It's just, I'm shocked Weinstein went to jail, because usually they just do it and it's expected. It's just part of the industry. It's like they blame the girl too. Like, well, she took the job, so she wanted it enough, or she didn't have to do it, or she could let some other girl do it and get the job. Listen, she could already have a job and not get to keep it unless she does X, Y, and Z. It is a lot of pressure and coercion. I think Mel Gibson said it, but he goes, I don't care who you are. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how strong your faith is, whatever. Living in LA in that scene in Hollywood it'll affect you. It's cancerous. It will corrupt you. It will mentally destroy you.
So
if you're a good person.
Connie's wondering the name of your book and how to get it. And I just looked at your store and it's not in there.
The store is just merchandise and stuff. The book's on Amazon. The most recent one is the separation of business and state. And it's all manner of topics and stuff about profiteering. And I've got another one called Welcome to the USSA, like the USSR, because that was all in the Bush regime and the crimes from that era. They're both pretty good. And there's another one that I co-authored with a whole bunch of other people called Why Peace. It's by Mark Gutman, but I'm in it. And I encourage you to, I don't get royalties from that one, but you should get that one. It's like 600 pages, but it's story after story after story with different authors. And Karen Kwiatkowski's in there. And a lot of people I've interviewed are also in that book. And you're getting anti-war stories, like what is called Why Peace, from everywhere. From Cambodia to Colombia to the United States to Britain to Romania. You're hearing authentic stories about things that happen. And an interesting little tidbit about that book, there was an Iraqi from Fallujah who wrote a story, and a soldier, female soldier, and saw each other's stories in the book and met and got married.
Wow. Wow. Right. Question from M13. What is up with Roy Cohn being connected to Trump? I'm still scratching my head because Roy Cohn liked little boys.
He sure did. He liked the Sheen family in particular, from a certain aerospace company that owned the hotels that J. Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tolson used to visit and fellatio each other. If you want to know about, he died of AIDS, by the way, but he knew Trump in the early 80s. Kind of been overblown because what people did, I won't say who she is, but they mixed up Roy Cohn and Michael Cohen's biographies, which is stupid, and like attributed all this stuff that the other Cohen did to Roy that he didn't do, because this person is a moron that just copies work. But if you want to know about Roy Cohn and all about the Trumps for free, you can go to my website and watch Trump's Zionist Ball and Chain. And it goes all over the Kushners to the Cohens, the whole history of the weirdos around him, including Steve Witkoff and others, some of whom are in his administration now. But yeah, Cohen was of the mindset, like, never admit wrongdoing, just lie forever, never fess up, never confess, never apologize. He was a scumbag. And it was funny. Roger Stone said he's not gay because he only slept with young men. What does that mean? I mean, he's not a fairy. He's still homosexual. Like, you can be masculine and be gay. Like, it's not. Yeah, whatever.
You're getting asked for your thoughts on the Skull and Bone.
What about Skull and Bone?
Yeah, the society. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I don't like Skull and Bone. Obviously, it's one of these initiation clubs. They recruit out of colleges like Yale, for example. They have Skull and Bone societies at more than Yale, though. And that crap started by grave robbing Native Americans. And apparently they even stole the skull of Geronimo. It was like, oh, murdering them off wasn't enough. Now let's desecrate the grave and steal the bones. Kind of sick stuff that goes all the way back to the Chivingtons, massacre at Sand Creek. And yeah, it derived into this basically like a little cult for mostly the sons of politicians and businessmen who will become the next. This is not a high level thing like APAC. Skull and Bones is like Bohemian Grove. It's on the ladder. It's on near the bottom. It's not nothing, but it's not. It's like a glorified frat house for the offspring of powerful people. But it is a stepping stone up in through. Then you get your Club of Rome, and then you go on and you go through all the various levels until you just retire at CFR or whatever.
So, Lorraine, why does Trump want Greenland? Is it because of Project Iceworm? Will Trump invade Canada? Love you both. Thank you for your hard work.
It's very interesting. Russia has 53 icebreakers. America had 2, and one of them broke. And the other one was basically sitting in dry port and got cannibalized for spare parts to fix the broken one, which is now broke again. They had one huge icebreaker instead of a bunch of, but America has 0. So Trump has made an order to build 40 of them. And I think the deal with Greenland is the rare earth metals. They know they're there. That's what he wants. I think the other thing is Greenland and the Arctic in particular are used for biolabs. In fact, the U.S. had, because if it escapes, it instantly dies because of the temperature, and there's no large populations around, so you're not going to have an Andromeda strain situation. I know researchers that work at the biolabs in the Arctic, and there's also one that the Americans abandoned that got encased in ice. So they have to go dig it out. So they're already there. So probably more of that, but the more pressing reason is for the rare earths.
Which ties into the next question from Curious Potato. The whole Ukraine situation depresses me. So this is how we do business now, by intimidation and invasion. It's always been like that, hasn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, I don't know why you say now. Like, it's sadly how it goes. And thing is, they're not intimidating because they're losing that war. And they tried to pull this stunt where they wanted a 30-day pause, but they didn't offer any guarantees of not continuing to arm and fund the side that's attacking Russia. And they're in Kursk. And Putin said, what are they going to do? Lay down in their weapons and leave? Or are they just going to surrender? Because otherwise, we're just going to kill them. Because they are not going to sit in Russian territory for 30 days of peace inside Russia. That's not happening. And Russia does not consider itself inside Ukraine because the areas that they're in seceded and joined the Russian Federation. So that Donbass and Zaporozhye area and part of Kherson legally in their argument are Russian. So they're defending Russia. But they're in Russia proper. And Crimea too. They seceded. That's part of Russia. In the Kursk region, which is semi-circled right now, and Russia can destroy them anyway, they wanted to say, oh, time out, give us a month. Like, we're not going to give you a month to rearm and regroup and recruit and then say time in. Like, what do we get from that? We're winning. Of course, a ceasefire is good. Hostage exchange, prisoner exchange, and and all those things could happen during a ceasefire. But if you really want a ceasefire, you have to offer something like, okay, we're going to stop arms shipments, or we're going to lift some economic sanctions. You got to have a carrot with the stick. Because what are you going to do? Continue the war and continue losing? Fine. It was a dumb move. They tried to pull the board. They tried to do what they did last time when Russia was winning really quickly in that war. And they said, time out, and Russia withdrew. They just started the war again. They're not going to get that. And Larry Johnson pointed this out, and he learned it from Andrei Martinyanov, who is he's an American, he's from Russia, he speaks fluent Russian. And this is something you can only know if you had a Russian speaker. There's a part in his speech where he said, it's nuanced, and he kind of chuckled. Now in English, yeah, it's nuanced. Of course it's nuanced. It's a complicated situation. But in Russian, it's a play on words, but the way they say it's nuanced sounds like another phrase. And it goes back to this situation where the story is, this is fiction, by the way, there's a general and I don't know, a captain or something or a soldier. The soldier asked him, like, sir, what is nuance? And he says, pull your pants down and bend over. And then he sticks it in him. And he says, you have a dick in you. I have a dick in you. The difference is nuance.
Oh gosh.
Because one,
Oh
you don't
wow.
quite, the way we both feel is the nuance. That's how it's like.
Oh.
So basically, Putin, when he said it's nuance, he's saying this is absolute ass fuck. I'm not doing this. Like it was, but you could not know that from the way they translate it literally. You would need somebody like Andrei Martinyanov, great guy, good guy, guest to come on for Ukraine too. But who told it to Johnson, who wrote it in Substack, and that's where I read it. But
yeah, please put a word in with Andre for me. So Lorraine wants to know, what do you think will happen to Trump? It looks like they are destroying Elon. What are your thoughts? I've watched the Tesla in the stock market.
I think they're making it stronger.
Get smashed in the last couple of weeks.
This is like attacking black people with dogs and hoses. Like if you're just going to go around smashing cars and stuff, they will just continue to arrest you. I mean, he's got hundreds of billions of dollars. It doesn't matter. So he's making these Cybertrucks nearly indefensible, like indestructible, some of them. But yeah, you can Molotov cars and stuff, and you can chimp out, Antifa style, whatever, BLM, which had nothing to do with blacks, and Antifa had nothing to do with fighting fascism. This is just titles, right? They're just terrorist groups. Attacking car dealerships and stuff for what? Because Trump Elon is a Trump ally. Elon's a Trump ally. You can't resort to criminal behavior because you don't like the fact that the main thing that Elon is doing is cutting waste. They label it as aid, USAID, which is doing paper shredding and setting the files on fire, where they have it's a criminal organization. And you've seen all these departments and stuff like, what'd you do this week? How did you spend this many $1 million on this bullshit? And it's just, if you listen to it, it's mind-blowing the utter crap the government has spent our money on that they shouldn't be doing. Like, okay, get rid of all that budget. You don't get to have that because you're just spending it on useless things. It's almost a creative contest to figure out the dumbest thing they could, like, dwarf hamster figure skating in Sri Lanka or something that I made up, but that is not far from some of the actual things they spent money on. And so Elon has a point, and I disagree with Elon on a lot of stuff, but he has a point on this. The people who scream the loudest when you're cutting waste and fraud are the fraudsters, of course. And so, yeah, I see a stock dip there.
It went up to almost 500, and now it's almost back down to 200. So they've managed. It's been halved in the last couple of months. So, all right, next question is: what
it's
about
been halved, but it went up, it doubled, and then went back to where it was. So it's not really
buy on rumor, sell on news, the old classic.
Yeah.
All right, so what about the Obamas? Are all these deep state in beds, have they been deactivated now? Are they just poised, like the Clintons, etc.? Are they just poised for the next election to resurrect from the dead?
It always just flip-flops between the two major parties in the U.S., and they're all Zionists. So, Thomas Massey predicted it when he said the Democrats will roll over and pass the budget for the Republicans. Chuck Schumer's just doing kayfabe, if you know your wrestling. He's just doing kayfabe. They roll right over. It was like, they had like 63 votes. They had way more than they needed. They never really oppose one another on the major issues. When it comes to monetary policy and foreign policy, and even the border, as much as they mouth about it on the Republicans, the border is still open. The Fed is still there, and it won't be audited until the GAO is, like once in 11 years or something. There's still a genocide in Gaza. There's still like all this stuff because it just goes on and on. They ruined Syria. It's already happened. They're bombing Yemen now. They were bombing Yemen before. It doesn't change. it's just it's like different psychological branding to portion demographics within the public between Republican and Democrat, but you're just going to get the same policy. Now, that doesn't mean there are no differences. Where I'm glad we're away from team pregnant men and Latinx and all that crap. Like, thank goodness. I see this as a definite improvement from Genocide Joe. But don't be delusional and think Trump's gonna deport all the illegals and shut the border and end all the wars and be Ron Paul, because he won't. And even if he wanted to, he doesn't have the cabinet to do it. He doesn't have the Congress. Like, our society's rotten from the core. If we don't fix the media, you cannot get political changes, or you can't get political or social changes until you fix the press. Because if you're not holding people accountable for what they do, they'll keep doing it forever. They fear stories coming out and tanking the reputation, and then they can't be elected. And you see what the media is weaponized for, though? To go after people who challenge the system. It's designed to go after people who are a threat to the rot. So the Matt Gaetz, the Kavanaughs, the Tates, the Assanges, the people that speak truth to power, the Snowdens, good people saying good messages. None of them are 100% good, but they're fighting the system. They'll get drugged through the mud. Some of them exiled or jailed. But the Hunter Bidens and stuff, nothing. And they are guilty of everything they accuse that side of doing, this side is doing. The people that are actually R-wording kids, they're actually engaged in profiteering, warmongering, pro-torture, all that. Nothing. Look at Nancy Pelosi's insider trading. And then you're going to go after Tristan Tate for tax evasion or something. Bitch, please. Like, the level of theft openly from politicians that enter in with X amount and leave with, 2 magnitudes more. Come on. The corruption's right there. The problem is we don't have a functional press that can stay on a story for more than 5 minutes. It's like, this should be a story. Nancy Pelosi engages in insider trading. She can't explain how she had all these increases. And she ought to go to jail. Like, if journalists want to just stick on that and drive it home, but what would happen is they'd just get fired. It would never be on TV. The story wouldn't come out. This brothel case, you might read it because I've now said it, and you know to look for the Lees and some papers out of Boston and Fairfax, perhaps, and that's going to be that's it. Unless we, all of you watching, we make this a thing and keep asking questions about it. Like, the fix doesn't come automatically. You have to be proactive. You have to be part of the solution. And no one can fix it, but together we can fix it. It's like litter. No one can ruin the planet. Even if they threw all the trash their whole life on the ground, it wouldn't make a difference. But if everybody acted like that, it would be a disaster. We'd have Plastic Island, which we do. You got to do your part.
Question from Curious Potato. Isn't Ukraine just a land grab by Russia?
No, it's not just a land grab, because when Crimea is, first of all, the parts of Ukraine that are Russian were already Russian all the way until the 1950s. So from 1776 to 1952 and 1954, you had Crimea and the Donbass were Russian, part of Russia, spoke Russian, Russian culture, Russian schools, Russian laws, Russian money, Russian everything. The Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and Khrushchev awarded the Donbass region to Ukraine in the 1950s. Some people watching this show are older than that. They, by referendum, because they're in a civil war where Western Ukraine was attacking their people, and I mean homes, schools, hospitals, whatever they wanted, with artillery and missiles and snipers, tried to secede. And they asked the Russian Federation to join. And Russia's told them no. So then they voted to become independent states, Luhansk and Donetsk. And they had their own flag and everything. And briefly, they were independent states. And Russia and Syria, a few states, they recognized their sovereignty. Only after you've got NATO trained troops, going to the border with Russia, and you have to realize from 2014 to 2022, 14,000 people in the Donbass were killed by Ukrainians. That's all before any Russians came in February of 2022. And it was when they broke the second Minsk Accord and started hitting the Donbass with heavy artillery. And this isn't like pop shots and full on going to civil war again. That 7 days after that, Russia entered the war. And then months later, those territories had referendums and seceded and joined the Russian Federation. Now, Crimea had done that in 2014, but the Donbass had not. So they followed suit. But if Russia wasn't the land grab, they could have recognized them as part of Russia instead of rejecting them in the first place. Russia tried to avoid the conflict. They told them, no, you cannot join Russia. You're going to have to work it out with Ukraine. Eventually, and they wouldn't recognize them as independent either at first. But going through what they did with the 2 CIA provocations in Chechnya and then in Georgia, fool me 3 times is enough. They were not going to allow the presence of NATO trained troops and weapons minutes from Moscow. And no country would. If there was a Chinese or Russian backed army in Mexico, that could invade Arizona or Texas or whatever, they wouldn't put up with that. No way. Nobody would. NATO kept moving east. And they said, this is the red line. And they had a large civil war, 14,000 people killed. They had the riots and the Maidan coup where they walled people up in Odessa and set the building on fire and killed the counter protesters. They outlawed the Russian language. They went after the Eastern Orthodox Church. There were a lot of provocations that Russia didn't just enter Ukraine out of the blue to take the dirt. Those states, now they have it. But those were all originally Russian anyway. It wasn't like a huge step that people already speak Russian. They were rejoining Russia. So, I'll tell you, if the rest of the United States all ganged up on Florida or something and, killed 14,000 people, whatever, they might consider joining another state, join Mexico or something. I don't know, join whoever they could for protection. And that's similar to what was going on in Ukraine. You had the West attacking the East. The Donbass did not try to invade Kiev. It was the other way around.
Here's a good question then, because I was thinking about what's going to happen with Iran. Do you think this is a plan to pull Russia away from helping Iran in a future attack?
Yes, I do. Not by everybody. I think there are some people who sincerely just want the killing to stop. But I think there are people there that are like, let's make it conditional that we will quit arming Ukraine, quit financing Ukraine if you will decouple from Iran and allow U.S. Israeli invasion of Iran. And I don't think Russia will throw Iran under the bus because they're winning the Ukraine war anyway. Trump's already run his mouth. He has to end it. He said he'd end it in 24 hours. He needs to do that. But there are definitely enough weasels in his ear who would love to add a condition of peace, which is completely irrelevant to Russia and Ukraine, that Russia pull away from Iran.
Do you think we could see a false flag incident this year and America launch into Iran?
I think it'll be next year. I don't think he'll start a war his first year in presidency. I think they're more likely to continue softening up the Houthi in Yemen and that Israel will restart the war with Lebanon this year.
When you say do you think he's got any control over it or it's out of his control?
I don't think he wants to control it. I think Trump will allow Netanyahu can do whatever he wants. So I think both America and Britain will join Israel on attacking Yemen's navy and attacking their missile silos, as they've been doing. But they asked about a false flag. It depends on if it works. It's very hard to pull off because after September, they botched that one so bad. I don't think people would believe it if something just went bang. I don't think they'd buy it. I think they're more likely to heat up the rhetoric about the cartels in Mexico and start sending drones and special forces, start a provocation there. And I think Yemen's a hot spot just because they're more doable. A war that Iran right now with Iran's hypersonic missiles and Israel very weakened and broken, they wouldn't win. So they need another year of softening them up, try a few color-coded revolutions. They'll probably fail, but they can just keep doing them forever until one of them works. Invading a country with, 88 million people and that type of terrain, and with the ability to hit back pretty hard on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria, and being able to hit Israel too. I don't think they want any of that. They desperately want to take out Iran, but they don't have a way, and they've war gamed it out. There's not a way to do that without really taking it on the chin. And so you're going to see more preparations, softening them up economically, trying to get maybe Azerbaijanis within the north, trying to split them along ethnic lines. Of course, the old Shia Sunni, same old. I don't expect a war this year. He'll talk. Trump talks. He's got a lot of air. He's horrible on Iran, always has been. But Iran has really positioned itself with its alliance with China too. Economically, they're dependent on them. A lot of people are. They got a lot of tools. They could close the Strait of Hormuz. They could annihilate the northern oil fields in Saudi Arabia, which cause a total lockdown. You can't take them out without going down with them. And so the U.S. would prefer I could see them trying to claim they're doing surgical strikes on their alleged nuclear facilities, or a decapitation strike on the leadership. That stuff's all plausible. But a full-on invasion like they invaded Iraq, I don't see it happening, not because they're moral, but because it wouldn't work. So they're not going to do that.
What about if they stage an attack on Western interests, the CIA, etc., and claim that Iran is behind it, and now Iran's provoked us, and now we've got to bomb the crap out of them?
I mean, they might as well just say Iran bombed the Nord Stream line. It's like, why would Iran just commit suicide by attacking the United States or some Western power in Europe? Like, come.
But the mainstream media will repeat it. The mainstream media will repeat it, and people will buy it. I think, like they bought Saddam's got weapons of mass destruction. Like they're buying now that if you're against peace, if you want the Ukraine war to end, you're a Putin repeater. You're a Putin repeater. You're a communist.
Yeah, well, you'll know when that's coming when there's about 5 to 6 months of propaganda before they pull the trigger. So when you start seeing Iran, and get this, it will not just be on the news. It will be in sitcoms. It'll be late night comedians. They will do it across the board. That's how they do it. Late night comedians, the Jimmy Kimmel's and stuff like that, they're not comedians. They're not just comedians. They have the position they have on the channel they have because they are political propagandists. And so they'll start saying it. And of course, the news media will say it, and the social media will say it. When they have the combined effort on whatever bull on Iran, then you'll know it's coming. But to pull it right now, they haven't. I mean, there's always rhetoric about Iran, but you know what I mean? The way it was for Iraq, the way it was for Saddam Hussein with Syria. When they start saying that, whatever they pick, they'll have some slogan. It'll be repeated like a mantra. Iran's got nukes or whatever it is, then you'll know it's coming.
What they're saying on the BBC here is that Iran is behind all of the terrorist organizations in the world. Basically, it's like the octopus. It's got all these arms, I'm seeing that slowly build up on the BBC, etc.
That, it's a weird thing. They're always guilty of their own accusations. Iran's behind all the terrorists. Oh, really? Who financed ISIS again? Who created Al Qaeda again? MEK, Baluchistan, Boko Haram, Al Shabaab. Like, oh, that's not Iran. They're the targets from all that. All those Sunni Salafist groups were backed by the United States and Britain. The white helmets, that's not Iran. That's the Brits. And they're in Ukraine too.
Right, we're going to have to end now, folks. And I put Ryan's links in the live chat and they're in the description box. What would you like to say in conclusion to the viewers, Ryan? What can they look forward to on your socials? Well,
I'm sticking on the Lee case because we got more hearings coming. And I'm working on a movie every day. That's why I don't have as many shows as I used to do. We're working diligently with my team on the new Empire and Mass. Going to be the definitive and final word on September 11th. And then, of course, come to our store, get some of this fine merchandise.
Yeah, mine are framed and on my walls in the house, and I'm going to take
a conversation starter.
It certainly is. The people
so just walks in and looks at that and sees his face in the middle. I was like, oh my.
All right, bro.
If you got all the maps, you could really freak someone out. You could put them across the walls.
I know it's almost midnight. Thank you for staying up with us, brother. I'll close the show, let you go and cop some Z's. And take care, my friend. Hope you come back soon. Thank you.
Always, man. Best to your wife and Ziggy. Peace.
Oh, cheers. Nice one. Nice one. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. That was absolutely fantastic. Why am I small right now on the screen? Let me see. There I am. Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic. Love the way Ryan breaks it down. And he's been with the channel now for about 5 or 6 years. Been a good friend of the channel for 5 or 6 years. We have got some stellar guests coming up.
All right. I think there were no shekel chats. Come on, people. Throw in a fuck Lincoln at least. We're going to have more on the Lee case. We got some more names today. I don't really care about guys visiting prostitutes. I mean, it's whatever. That's not the thing. It's the blackmail. It's the fact that when people engage in this, they can be compromised. And that's where it's dangerous. And that seems to be going on. Now, Han Lee, she's a high school educated. That doesn't mean she's dumb, though. I mean, plenty of people who didn't go to college are intelligent enough to run brothel rings and complex financial scams. You don't have to have a formal education to do that. But what we have here now is 3 guilty pleas, sentencing coming in April, 2 more hearings in March. So we will get some names, more of the Johns. 9 of those 12 that I don't think we put the list in this video, but it's on my Twitter right now. They've been fleshed out by the press in Boston and in Virginia as to who they were and what they did. Kind of extra punishment for it to be so public. This guy was visiting hookers, but thousands of men were visiting the same brothels. Why these 28 got thrown under the bus? Think about it. What do you think it is? And how come, if they have this long list of thousands of names, they got the phones, they have guilty pleas, they have the booker of the hookers, and none of the girls have, they're not girls, none of the women have any accountability for engaging in prostitution and making a lot of money. By the way, these women made money too. So I think they must have done plea bargains. I think they must have. And I think that's why you're getting guilty pleas. But then exactly who is the higher target then? Why are you letting thousands, more than 3,000 guys off the hook? It appears they don't want you to know who those elected officials or big pharma executives were. That's a lot of sensitive stuff. Checking over on Rumble real quick. Pee Pee Poopa Man slams in a dead Ulysses Grant to say fuck Lincoln. There's no better way to say fuck Lincoln than with a dead Ulysses Grant. That's a perfect way to do that. Fucking fire. That's why I stay on Rumble, is because of Shekel chats like that. And then Defiant Dissident throws in a dead Lincoln to say fuck Israel. The two things I was looking for, a fuck Lincoln and a fuck Israel. And Lincoln started the income tax. Of course, he created the Civil War. Seen Daryl Cooper starting to dip his toe into the Civil War stuff too. He's been covering World War II, which is a beast all by itself. But if he ever covers the Civil War, that would be epic. I would help him with that if he wants. There's a lot on him. You're talking a lot of books to read. So I got a question for the people in the Rumble chat of what you want next. I mean, I'm jumping in on a space right now with Patrick to talk about Yemen. So if you're interested in that, come at it. Any guests you've seen on here, do you like to have return? I'm going to start doing shows. I'll do another like week in a row and then get back on Empire Unmasked. It's about 20% done. I don't have much to do on it right now. It's all in the visuals. So I have about 7 days where I can start doing Rumble videos. So give me the guests you want to see and I'll look. So I'm on Twitter right now. Go over to X and follow the space on Yemen. It's called Trump Israel bombing Yemen. That's what. Oh, Defiant Dissident just said, could Netanyahu be taken out by the Israeli government? He could be. He won't be. He's the one that moves America, so they're going to keep him. Another Dawson and Dawson be good. All right, I'll get my brother on. We can either do Civil War or Native American stuff. That seems to be the things you enjoy the most. We just did one on the colony, so not that. Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Especially to Pee-Poo Man. You just made the stream worth doing. Let's get on to Yemen. Peace.
Fireblood makes a piss yellow, like a man. Manly yellow.